Imagine a bustling city nightclub, pulsing with music and laughter, where a wedding celebration is in full swing. The bride glows, the groom beams, and guests clink glasses under glittering lights. But then, a scream slices through the revelry. A man stumbles from a shadowy corner, his tuxedo stained with blood, collapsing as the crowd freezes in horror. Was it a drunken accident or something far more sinister? "Welcome to Birds of a Feather, an electrifying murder," she wrote mystery, where Jessica Fletcher, our sharp-witted mystery writer, unravels a web of deceit that threatens to tear a family apart. In this video, we're diving into the heart of this suspenseful tale, chapter by chapter, uncovering secrets that lurk behind smiles and champagne toasts. So, grab a notepad, channel your inner detective, and let's solve this case with Jessica. Don't forget to like and subscribe to join the mystery. The neon lights of San Francisco are a far cry from the sleepy streets of Cabot Cove. But Jessica Fletcher is no stranger to trouble, no matter the setting. In Birds of a Feather, we find our beloved mystery writer drawn into a murder case that unfolds against the backdrop of a glamorous wedding. This first chapter sets the stage, introducing the vibrant city, the key players, and the chilling moment that turns a celebration into a crime scene. Jessica's keen eye and relentless curiosity are about to be tested as she steps into a world of feuding families, hidden motives, and a death that's anything but accidental. Ready for a mystery that'll keep you on edge? Let's dive into the chaos and see how it all begins. Jessica Fletcher has come to San Francisco to attend the wedding of her niece, Donna Mayberry, a bright young woman marrying into the wealthy Forrest family. The city buzzes with energy cable cars clanging, fog rolling off the bay, and the nightlife pulsing with excitement. Donna's fiancé, Howard Forrest, is the charming son of a prominent businessman, and their engagement party is set at the Blue Parrot, a swanky nightclub owned by Howard's uncle, Al Drake. The club is a dazzling mix of Art Deco glamour and modern flair. With a jazz band playing and guests in their finest attire, Jessica, ever observant, takes it all in. The glittering chandeliers, the clinking glasses, and the undercurrent of tension beneath the smiles. Something's off, she senses, but she can't quite place it yet. Let's meet the key players. Donna, Jessica's niece, is radiant but nervous, her eyes darting to her future in-laws, as if seeking approval. Howard is all charm, but Jessica notices a flicker of unease when he talks to his father. Martin Forrest, a stern patriarch with a tight grip on the family's real estate empire. Martin's wife, Barbara Forrest, is poised but distant, her smiles never reaching her eyes. Then there's Al Drake, the nightclub owner, a slick-talking showman with a reputation for shady deals. Add in a cast of colorful guest business associates, socialites, and a few questionable characters from Al's world, and you've got a powder keg waiting for a spark. Jessica, sipping her soda water, watches them all, her writer's mind already spinning a story. The suspense kicks in during the engagement party. The Blue Parrot is alive with celebration, but trouble brews in the shadows. Al Drake, charming the crowd with his jokes, seems distracted, his eyes scanning the room as if expecting trouble. Jessica overhears a heated exchange between Martin, Forrest, and Al, something about debts and keeping promises. She files it away, her instincts tingling. Then, as the band strikes up a lively tune, a commotion erupts near the back of the club. A man, Bill Carmody, a business associate of the Forrest family, stumbles forward, blood seeping through his tuxedo shirt. He collapses, gasping as the crowd screams. Jessica, calm amid the chaos, notes the panic in Al's eyes in the way. Martin freezes, his face unreadable. Was Carmody's death an accident, or did someone at this party have blood on their hands? Here's where Jessica's brilliance shines. While others panic, she observes the position of Carmody's body. The glittering facade of San Francisco's Blue Parrot nightclub has shattered, replaced by the stark glare of police lights and the chilling echo of a scream that marked Bill Carmody's brutal murder during Donna Mayberry's engagement party. Jessica Fletcher, our sharp-witted mystery writer, stands amid the chaos, her calm demeanor masking a mind racing with questions as she surveys the crime scene where a man's life ended in a single, precise stab. The blood-stained cufflink with a bird emblem, a lipstick-stained cigarette, and overheard whispers of debts and promises have ignited a fire of suspicion. Pointing to a web of motives woven through the Forrest family and the nightclubs, shady underbelly. In this chapter, we're plunging into the tense aftermath of Carmody's death, following Jessica as she begins her quiet investigation in a city pulsing with secrets. The suspense is a tightening noose. Let's dive into the shadows of this deadly night and uncover the clues that will lead us closer to a killer hiding in plain sight. The Blue Parrot, once alive with jazz and laughter, is now a crime scene. Its Art Deco glamour marred by overturned tables and scattered glasses. Police tape cordons off the corner where Bill Carmody collapsed, his tuxedo soaked in blood, his eyes wide with shock. Mike Hernandez, a gruff but methodical detective, directs his team as they search for the murder weapon. A sharp blade that delivered a clean professional wound to Carmody's chest. The crowd's chaos during the party makes witnesses unreliable. But Jessica's writer's eye catches what others miss: a shattered cocktail glass near Carmody's body, its shards glinting under the club's dim chandeliers. A faint smear of blood trailing a few feet, as if he staggered before falling. And, most intriguing, a silver cufflink, embossed with a stylized bird, lying just beyond the police tape. Jessica doesn't touch it. She's too seasoned for that, but she memorizes its design, wondering if it belongs to the Forrest family, whose crest reportedly features a bird, or someone else entirely. The guests are a mix of shock and suspicion, their faces lit by the flickering neon outside. Jessica watches her niece, Donna, clinging to Howard Forrest, her engagement ring catching the light as tears streak her face. Howard, usually charming, looks shaken, his hand gripping Donna's a bit too tightly. His parents, Martin and Barbara Forrest, stand with their lawyer, their expressions unreadable but tense. Martin, the patriarch of a real estate empire, exudes authority, but Jessica notices his jaw clench when L.T. Hernandez approaches. Barbara, poised in a sleek black dress, keeps her gaze distant, her fingers twisting a pearl necklace. Al Drake, the nightclub's slick owner and Howard's uncle, paces near the bar, his usual swagger replaced by nervous glances at the police. Then there's Phyllis Grant, a socialite with a sharp tongue, whose earlier argument with Carmody has tongues wagging. Jessica spots a lipstick-stained cigarette near the crime scene, its red shade matching Phyllis's bold makeup, and files it away as a clue. Jessica approaches Donna first, offering a comforting hug but slipping in gentle questions. "What was Bill like?" she asks, her voice soft. Donna hesitates, her eyes darting to Howard. "He was close to Martin, always at family events. A bit pushy, I guess." Howard jumps in, his voice strained. "He was Dad's business guy. Handled deals, liked to throw his weight around." Jessica catches the unease in Howard's tone, as if he's hiding something. She thinks about Carmody's role a key player in Martin Forrest's real estate ventures. Is he pushing too hard, threatening the family's empire? She recalls a Cabot Cove case where a business partner's greed led to murder and wonders if Carmody's ambition made him a target. Donna's nervousness, too, suggests she knows more about the Forrests than she's letting on, and Jessica resolves to probe deeper. Next, Jessica seeks out Al Drake, finding him behind the bar, barking at a waiter to clean up this mess. She approaches with her trademark charm, asking how he's holding up. Al's smile is forced, his hands shredding a cocktail napkin. "Terrible night for business," he says, avoiding her eyes. "Bill was just a regular, liked the music. You know." But when Jessica mentions the argument she overheard between Al and Martin, something about debts and promises, Al's face tightens. "Just business talk, Mrs. Fletcher. Nothing to do with this." His deflection is too quick, and Jessica notices a ledger peeking out from under a stack of papers on the bar. The Goodall's nightclub, with its rumors of gambling and shady deals tied to Carmody's death. She thinks about Al's underworld connections, wondering if Carmody was caught in a dangerous game. The suspense thickens as Jessica chats with Tony, who's a bartender who's wiping down glasses with a shaky hand. Tony, eager to talk, shares that Carmody was a big spender, always tipping well. But lately he'd been jumpy, like he owed someone. Jessica's ears prick up. Was arguing with that fancy lady, Phyllis Grant, last week, Tony adds. Lowering his voice, something about money he promised her. She was mad. Jessica's mind races Phyllis's cigarette, her public spat with Carmody at the party, and now this. Was it a personal grudge or something bigger? She also learns from Tony that Carmody was seen heading toward a dim corner of the club just before the scream, arguing in hushed tones with someone who Tony didn't see, but he mentions a spilled drink near the back exit, as if someone left in a hurry. Jessica's mind flashes to the shattered glass near Carmody's body. Was it a distraction? Like in a case where a killer used chaos to slip away. Jessica slips outside, the San Francisco fog curling around her like a living thing. The cities. Pulse cable cars clang. The fog of San Francisco wraps the Blue Parrot nightclub in a ghostly shroud. But the chill of Bill Carmody's murder cuts deeper, leaving the engagement party in ruins, and Jessica Fletcher's mind racing with questions. Blood-stained cufflink. The lipstick-stained cigarette, and the whispered arguments about debts have set the stage for a mystery that's as tangled as the city's streets. In this chapter, we're diving into the life of the victim himself, Bill Carmody, to uncover what made him a target. Jessica, with her writer's instinct for hidden truths, is peeling back the layers of Carmody's connections to the Forrest family and Al Drake's shady world. Every clue points to a motive buried in greed, betrayal, or a secret someone would kill to protect. The suspense is a tightening grip. Let's follow Jessica as she navigates the dark corners of Carmody's past, where danger lurks in every shadow. Jessica stands outside the Blue Parrot, the neon sign flickering in the damp air, her thoughts as sharp as the city skyline. The police, led by LT Mike Hernandez, are still combing the crime scene. But Jessica knows the answers lie beyond the nightclub's walls in Carmody's life. His deals and the enemies he made. She recalls his role as a business associate of Martin Forrest, a man tied to the family's real estate empire, and the heated words she overheard between Martin and Al Drake about debts and promises. Carmody's stabbing was precise, deliberate, and Jessica's gut tells her it wasn't random. She thinks about a case back in Cabot Cove, where a man's past debts led to a deadly reckoning. She wonders if Carmody's history holds the key to his fate. To start, Jessica visits Donna at her hotel room, where her niece is still reeling from the night's horror. Donna's eyes are puffy, her voice shaky, but Jessica's gentle questions coax out details. Bill was always around Howard's family, Donna says, twisting her engagement ring. He worked with Martin on some big deals, property developments. I think Howard said he could be pushy, always wanting a bigger cut. Jessica catches the hesitation in Donna's voice, as if she's holding back. She presses lightly, asking if Carmody ever seemed troubled. Donna bites her lip, then admits he was arguing with Martin a lot lately. Something about a deal gone wrong. I didn't ask. Howard told me to stay out of it. Jessica's antenna goes up. Deal gone wrong. That's motive material, and she makes a note to dig into Martin's business. Next. Jessica heads to the Blue Parrot during daylight hours. When the club is quiet, its glamour faded under harsh fluorescence. Al Drake is there, supervising a cleanup crew, his charm replaced by a haggard look. Jessica, posing as a concerned guest, asks about Carmody's ties to the club. Al's smile is tight, his hands fidgeting with a matchbook. Bill was a regular, he says, avoiding her eyes. Liked the jazz, liked the drinks, nothing special. But Jessica notices a tremor in his voice. And when she mentions the argument she overheard between Al and Martin, Al's face hardens. Business talk, Mrs. Fletcher. Nothing to do with that. His deflection is too quick. And Jessica wonders if Carmody was caught in a financial web between Al's shady deals and Martin's empire. She spots a ledger on Al's desk, half hidden under papers, and makes a mental note to check into his finances. The suspense deepens as Jessica learns more about Carmody's past from an unexpected source, a chatty bartender. Tony, who worked the party. Tony, wiping down the bar, shares that Carmody was a big spender, always flashing cash and tipping generously. But lately, he was twitchy, Tony says, lowering his voice. Kept looking over his shoulder, like someone was after him. Him arguing with that socialite Lady Phyllis Grant last week, too. Something about money he owed her. Jessica's mind latches onto this. Phyllis's cigarette was near the crime scene, and her public spat with Carmody at the party suggests bad blood. Could she have stabbed him in a fit of rage? Or was she protecting someone else? Jessica recalls the cufflink with the bird emblem could. It belonged to Phyllis's circle, or even the Forrest family. To dig deeper, Jessica visits the San Francisco Library, using her writer's credentials to access old business records. Uncovers articles about Martin Forrest's real estate ventures, including a troubled development project, a luxury high-rise that stalled due to financial irregularities. Carmody's name appears as a key investor, but rumors hint at mismanaged funds and angry partners. Jessica's mind races. Was Carmody skimming money or threatening to expose Martin? She also finds a mention of Aldrake's nightclub in a police report, linked to illegal gambling in the back rooms. Carmody, a regular, might have been involved or caught wind of something dangerous. Jessica thinks about the figure she saw in the fog outside the club, wondering if he was a hired hand, perhaps tied to Al's underworld connections. Back at the hotel, Jessica runs into Howard Forrest, who's visibly shaken but trying to keep up appearances for Donna's sake. She asks about Carmody's role in the family business, keeping her tone casual. Howard's jaw tightens. He was Dad's right-hand man, but they clashed sometimes. Bill wanted more say, more profit. Dad didn't like being challenged. Jessica notices Howard's cufflink simple. No bird emblem but his unease mirrors Donna's. She wonders if Howard knows about his father's dealings, or if he's protecting Martin out of loyalty. The Forrest family, with their wealth and secrets, feels like a fortress, and Jessica senses cracks in its walls. She thinks about Barbara Forrest, whose icy calm at the party hit a steel core. Could she have acted to protect the family's reputation? The clues are piling up, each one sharpening the suspense. Jessica revisits the crime scene in her mind, the dim corner where Carmody fell. The blood smear suggesting he staggered forward, the cufflink glinting nearby. She learns from L.T. Hernandez that the police found no fingerprints on the shattered glass. But the stab wound's precision suggests a skilled hand. Jessica wonders if the killer was someone Carmody trusted, close enough to strike without raising alarm. She thinks about the spilled drink near the back exit, mentioned by the waiter, and the lipstick-stained cigarette. Phyllis is a smoker, but so is Barbara, and Jessica's seen her light up at tense moments. The bird emblem cufflink keeps nagging at her could. It belonged to Martin, or even Al, whose nightclub is named the Blue Parrot. The city's pulse adds to the tension. San Francisco streets, alive with cable cars and bustling crowds, feel like a maze hiding a predator. Jessica notices the figure in the dark coat again, lingering near the hotel, his face still obscured. She alerts L.T. Hernandez, who brushes it off as a coincidence, but Jessica's not so sure. She thinks about Al's ledger, the gambling rumors, and Carmody's twitchy behavior. Was he in debt to the wrong people? Or did he know too much about Martin's irregularities? The Forrest family's wealth, Al's shady deals, and Phyllis's grudge all swirl in her mind, each a piece of a puzzle that's starting to take shape. Let's pause on the suspects. Martin Forrest, with his empire at stake, had reason to silence Carmody if he was a threat. Barbara's composure could hide a ruthless streak, protecting her family's name. Aldrake's nervous energy and underworld ties make him a prime candidate. Phyllis Grant's argument with Carmody points to a personal motive, and her cigarette is a damning clue. San Francisco's fog swirls thicker now, mirroring the murky secrets surrounding Bill Carmody's murder at the Blue Parrot nightclub, where a single stab turned a joyous engagement party into a chilling crime scene. Jessica Fletcher, her writer's instincts razor sharp, has uncovered troubling clues in Carmody's past, a man tangled in the forest, family's real estate deals, and Al Drake's shady nightclub operations. The bird-embossed cufflink, the lipstick-stained cigarette, and whispers of debts point to a motive rooted in power and betrayal. But the heart of the mystery lies within the Forrest family itself. In this chapter, we're diving deep into the Forrest's world, where wealth and prestige hide tensions that could drive someone to kill. Jessica's probing questions and keen observations are closing in on the truth, but every step stirs the suspense higher. Let's follow her as she peels back the layers of a family teetering on the edge of ruin. Jessica sits in her hotel room, the city's hum filtering through the window as she sifts through her notes. The cufflink with the bird emblem, likely, tied to the Forrest family crest, keeps nagging at her. As does the spilled drink near the nightclub's back exit and Phyllis Grant's cigarette. Carmody's death feels personal, tied to his role in Martin Forrest's empire. And Jessica senses the family's polished exterior hides cracks wide enough for murder. Martin, the stern patriarch, and his wife Barbara exude control. But there, son Howard's unease and Donna's nervous glances suggest secrets they're desperate to keep. Jessica thinks about a case in Cabot Cove, where a family's hidden shame led to violence. And she's determined to uncover what the Forrests are hiding before the killer strikes again. To start, Jessica visits Donna at her hotel, hoping her niece's closeness to the Forrests will yield clues. Donna is pacing, her engagement ring glinting as she wrings her hands. "I just want the wedding to go smoothly, Aunt Jessica," she says, her voice trembling. Jessica asks about Martin's business, keeping her tone gentle. Donna hesitates, then admits. Howard says his dad's been stressed. Some big project to high-rise went bad and Bill was involved. They fought a lot. Jessica's mind latches onto this. The library articles mentioned a stalled development with financial irregularities, and Carmody's name was tied to it. Could he have been skimming funds, or threatening to expose Martin? Donna's reluctance to say more, her eyes darting. To the door suggests she's scared. It's perhaps of Howard's family or something she overheard. Next, Jessica heads to the Forrest family's office, a sleek high-rise downtown that screams wealth. She's there under the pretense of discussing wedding plans, but her real goal is to observe Martin and Barbara up close. Martin greets her with a stiff handshake, his office lined with photos of skyscrapers and a framed emblem of a soaring bird matching the cufflink. "The terrible thing about Bill," he says, his voice clipped, "was a valued associate, but business can be rough." Jessica notices his knuckles whiten as he grips his desk, and when she mentions the troubled high-rise, his eyes narrow. "Aye. That's old news, Mrs. Fletcher. Nothing to do with this." His defensiveness is a red flag, and Jessica wonders if Carmody's push for control in the business made him a liability. She spots a ledger on his desk, similar to Al's, and makes a mental note to dig into their financial ties. Barbara Forrest, poised in a tailored suit, joins the conversation, her smile as cold as the fog outside. Jessica asks about the party, probing for reactions to Carmody's death. Barbara's composure is flawless, but her fingers twist her pearl necklace when Jessica mentions the argument between Martin and Al Drake. "Family squabbles," she says lightly. "Al's always been colorful." But Jessica catches a flicker of disdain in her eyes, as if Al's nightclub ventures are a stain on the Forrest name. She thinks about Barbara's cigarette habit. Could the lipstick stained, but near Carmody's body be hers? Barbara's icy calm feels like a mask, and Jessica recalls a case where a seemingly perfect spouse hit a ruthless streak. Is Barbara protecting the family's reputation, or something more personal? The suspense deepens as Jessica visits the Blue Parrot again, seeking Al Drake. The club is closed, but Al's there, hunched over his ledger, his face drawn. Jessica, feigning concern, asks about his relationship with the Forrests. Al's laugh is hollow. "Martin's my brother-in-law, but we don't see eye to eye. He's all about control, and I'm freer." When Jessica mentions Carmody, Al's hands tremble, dropping a pen. "Bill was a middleman, always stirring the pot," he says, too quickly. Jessica presses, asking about the debts. She overheard. Al snaps, "Just business, Mrs. Fletcher. Stay out of it." His reaction confirms her suspicions. Al's nightclub, with its gambling rumors, is tied to Martin's empire. And Carmody was caught in the middle. Was he a debtor, a whistleblower, or a pawn in their feud? Jessica's next move is to talk to Phyllis Grant, whose argument with Carmody and cigarette at the crime scene make her a key suspect. She finds Phyllis at a chic cafe, her red lipstick. Bold as ever. Bill was a leech, Phyllis says, lighting a cigarette. He promised me a cut of a deal, then backed out. I gave him a piece of my mind at the party, that's all. Her casual tone feels forced, and Jessica notices her eyes dart to a man at a nearby table, a business associate. Perhaps? Jessica asks about the forests, and Phyllis smirks. Martin's a tyrant, Barbara's a snake, and Howard's just their puppet. Al's the only one with guts, but he's in over his head. The venom in her words suggests a deeper grudge, and Jessica wonders if Phyllis's anger at Carmody was a cover for targeting the forests. A new clue emerges when Jessica meets Tony, the bartender, outside the club. He's nervous, glancing over his shoulder as he shares more about Carmody's final days. He was scared, Tony whispers. Said he'd cross someone big, someone who'd make him pay. I saw him with a guy in a dark coat a few nights. Before it looked like bad news. Jessica's mind flashes to the figure she saw in the fog, the one watching the blue parrot. Could he be a hired hand tied to Al's underworld or Martin's deals? Tony also mentions a spilled drink near the back exit where Carmody was last seen arguing. Jessica revisits the crime scene in her mind, the blood smear, the cufflink, the cigarette. The bird emblem points to the forests, but the spilled drink suggests a hasty exit, someone fleeing the scene. The city's atmosphere amplifies the suspense. San Francisco's fog cloaks the streets, making every shadow a potential threat. Jessica notices the figure in the dark coat again, lingering near the hotel, his presence a silent menace. She alerts L.T. Hernandez, who's growing frustrated with the case. No weapon, no clear motive, he grumbles. Everyone's got an alibi, but Jessica thrives on dead ends. She thinks about the Forrest family crest, the financial irregularities, and Al's ledger. Carmody's pushiness, his fights with Martin, and his debts to Phyllis all paint a picture of a man who knew too much. She recalls a case where a family's wealth hid a trail of betrayal. The Forrests feel like a powder keg ready to explode. Let's pause on the suspects. Martin Forrest, with his empire at stake, had motive to silence Carmody if he threatened exposure. Barbara's cold demeanor could hide a calculated act to protect the family name. Al Drake's shady dealings and nervous tics make him a wild card. Did Carmody owe him or know his secrets? Phyllis Grant's grudge and cigarette tie her to the scene, but is she a killer or a distraction? Howard and Donna, caught in the family's web, might be hiding what they know. The figure in the fog looms large, perhaps a hired killer or a witness. Jessica's closing in. The fog of San Francisco clings to the city like a secret, but the murder of Bill Carmody at the Blue Parrot nightclub is a mystery that refuses to stay hidden. Jessica Fletcher, with her keen eye for detail and unyielding curiosity, has uncovered cracks in the Forrest family's polished facade, where wealth and power mask tensions that could drive someone to kill. The bird-embossed cufflink, the lipstick-stained cigarette, and whispers of troubled business deals point to a motive steeped in greed and betrayal. But the truth lies in the money trail that Carmody left behind. In this chapter, we're diving deep into the financial web tying Carmody to Martin Forrest's real estate empire and Al Drake's shady nightclub operations. As Jessica follows the dollars to uncover a killer's motive, the suspense is a pulse-pounding current. Let's join Jessica as she navigates a labyrinth of ledgers, debts, and dangerous secrets. Inching closer to a truth that someone will stop at nothing to bury, Jessica sits at a small cafe near the bay, the scent of coffee mingling with the salty air, her notebook open as she jots down clues. The cufflink with the Forrest family's bird emblem, the spilled drink near the Blue Parrot's back exit, and Phyllis Grant's cigarette are pieces of a puzzle, but the heart of the mystery beats in the financial dealings Carmody was tangled in. She recalls the library articles about Martin's stalled high-rise project. It's marred by financial irregularities, and Tony the bartender's tale of Carmody's twitchy behavior, as if he owed someone big. Al Drake's ledger and his heated exchange with Martin about debts and promises suggest a money trail that could lead to murder. Jessica's solved cases where cash was the spark for violence, and she's determined to follow this trail to its source, even if it means crossing powerful players like the Forrests. To start, Jessica revisits the San Francisco library, her writer's credentials granting her access to deeper business records. She digs into Martin Forrest's real estate ventures, focusing on the high-rise Projecta luxury tower that promised millions but stalled amid lawsuits and missing funds. Carmody's name appears as a key investor, but buried in a financial report is a hint of trouble, discrepancies in the project's accounts, with large sums unaccounted for. Jessica's mind races. Did Carmody siphon money, or was he threatening to expose someone who did? She finds a mention of Al Drake as a minor partner, his nightclub tied to the project through a loan that was never repaid. The connection between Martin's empire and Al's shady world is clearer now. Jessica wonders if Carmody was a middleman who got too greedy or too honest. Next, Jessica heads to the Blue Parrot, where the daytime quiet contrasts with its nocturnal chaos. Al Drake is there, hunched over his ledger, his face etched with worry. Jessica, feigning interest in the club's history, steers the conversation to Carmody. "Was a regular," Al says, his voice tight, liked to flash cash, but he wasn't. Family. When Jessica mentions the high-rise project, Al's hand freezes on the ledger, his eyes darting to the door. "That's Martin's business, not mine," he snaps. But Jessica notices a stack of unpaid bills tucked under the ledger. And Tony's words echo. Carmody was scared, like he owed someone. She thinks about Al's gambling rumors, wondering if Carmody was in debt to loan sharks tied to the club, or if he knew about Al's financial ties to Martin's project. The suspense intensifies as Jessica visits Martin Forrest's office again, this time with a bolder approach. She asks about the high-rise, framing it as concern for Donna's future with the family. Martin's face is a mask of control, but his fingers grip a pen too tightly. "The project's fine," he says, his tone sharp. "Bill was a good partner, but he overstepped sometimes." Jessica catches the edge in his voice, and when she mentions the financial irregularities, Martin's eyes flash with anger. "Those are just rumors, Mrs. Fletcher. I'd appreciate it if you didn't spread them." His warning is clear, but Jessica's undeterred. She notices a photo on his desk, Martin and Howard at a ribbon cutting, both wearing cufflinks with the bird emblem. Was the cufflink at the crime scene Martin's or Howard's? She thinks about the family crest, symbol of pride that might now point to guilt. Barbara Forrest enters the office, her elegance as icy as ever. Jessica shifts gears, asking about the party and Carmody's role in the family. "Right." Barbara's smile is thin, her fingers twisting her pearl necklace. "Bill was useful, but ambitious," she says. "He didn't always know his place." Jessica notes the disdain in her tone, as if Carmody was a pest to be swatted. She brings up the cigarette found near the crime scene, casually mentioning its red lipstick. Barbara's hand pauses, her eyes narrowing. "Plenty of women smoke, Mrs. Fletcher," she says coolly, but Jessica spots a pack of cigarettes in her purse, the same brand as Phyllis's. Could Barbara have been closer to Carmody's death than she lets on? Jessica recalls a case where a spouse's loyalty hid a deadly secret, and Barbara's composure feels like a fortress hiding something dark. Jessica's next stop is Phyllis Grant, who's lounging at a high-end boutique. Her red lipstick is bold as her attitude. Jessica asks about her argument with Carmody, keeping her tone light. Phyllis exhales a plume of smoke, her laugh sharp. "He owed me money from a bad deal, thought he could charm his way out of it. I set him straight. At the party." But when Jessica mentions the high-rise project, Phyllis's smirk fades. "That was Martin's mess," she says, her voice low. "Bill was in deep, but he wasn't the only one." Her cryptic words suggest she knows more about the financial irregularities, and Jessica wonders if Phyllis's grudge was personal or tied to the Forrest's empire. The cigarette at the scene keeps nagging at her, a clue that could point to Phyllis, Barbara, or someone else entirely. A new lead emerges when Jessica talks to Tony, the bartender outside the club. He's jumpier now, his eyes scanning the foggy street. "I heard Carmody talking to some guy a few days before," he whispers. "Said he was done covering for them. Sounded like he was going to blow the whistle." Jessica's pulse quickens. Blow the whistle on what? Martin's financial schemes? Al's gambling? She asks about the man in the dark coat she saw watching the club. Tony nods, nervous. "Yeah, I've seen him around. It looked like bad news. Maybe one of Al's friends. Jessica thinks about the figure, wondering if he's a lone shark or a hired killer tied to the money trail. The spilled drink near the back exit, the blood smear, and the cufflink all swirl in her mind. Pointing to a killer who planned their escape, the city's atmosphere fuels the suspense. San Francisco's fog rolls in thicker, cloaking the streets in a ghostly haze that mirrors the mystery's opacity. Jessica spots the figure in the dark coat again, lingering near the library, his presence a silent threat. No weapon, no clear suspect, he says, rubbing his temples. This case is a mess, but Jessica thrives on messes. She thinks about the financial trail. Martin's stalled project, Al's unpaid bills, Carmody's debts to Phyllis. Bird emblem cufflink suggests a Forrest family connection. But the spilled drink and the figure in the fog hint at an outsider's involvement. She recalls a case where a money dispute led to a staged murder, and wonders if Carmody's death was meant to silence him more, send a message. Let's pause on the suspects. Martin Forrest, with his empire at risk, had motive to eliminate Carmody. If he was exposing fraud, Barbara's icy calm could hide a ruthless act to protect the family name. While Drake's nervous energy and shady ties point to a gambling debt or a cover-up, Phyllis Grant's anger and cigarette tie her to the scene. But is she a killer or a pawn? Howard and Donna, caught in the family's orbit, might know more than they admit. The figure in the fog could be a hired hand, tying the murder to Al's underworld. Jessica's mind is a whirlwind, but she's close to a breakthrough, the money. Trail leading her to the killer's doorstep. Here's a tip to keep you sleuthing. Focus on the money. Carmody's role in the high-rise project and his debts are the heart of this mystery. Try imagining what he was covering for: fraud, gambling, or something darker, and who it threatened most. Jot down one clue, like the cufflink or the ledger, and see how it fits the financial puzzle. The suspense is... San Francisco's fog wraps the city in a veil of secrets. But the murder of Bill Carmody at the Blue Parrot nightclub burns through the haze, demanding answers. Jessica Fletcher, with her relentless curiosity and knack for spotting hidden truths, has followed the money trail to a web of financial deceit tying Carmody to Martin, a Forrest's real estate empire, and Al Drake's shady nightclub dealings. The bird, bossed cufflink, the lipstick-stained cigarette, and the mysterious figure in the fog point to a killer lurking close. But the Blue Parrot itself holds the key to unraveling this deadly puzzle. In this chapter, we're diving into the nightclub's dark corners, where gambling debts, whispered threats, and hidden ledgers reveal a world of danger. Jessica's probing deeper. The suspense is a suffocating grip. Let's follow her as she uncovers the secrets of the Blue Parrot, where every shadow could hide a killer. Jessica stands outside the Blue Parrot, the neon sign dim in the morning. Light, its garish charm faded like a stage set after the curtains fall. The nightclub, with its rumors of backroom gambling and shady deals, feels like the heart of this mystery. She recalls Al Drake's nervous demeanor, his ledger half hidden under papers. In Tony the bartender's tale of Carmody's fear, he was done covering for them, Tony said, hinting at a secret that cost him his life. The cufflink was... The Forrest family's bird emblem suggests a connection to Martin or Howard, but the spilled drink near the back exit and the figure in the fog point to Al's underworld. Jessica solved cases where a single location held all the clues, and she's betting the Blue Parrot is no different. Her goal: get inside, talk to Al, and find the truth hidden in the club's shadows. Jessica slips into the nightclub during a quiet hour, air stale with last night's liquor and smoke. Al is there, barking orders at a cleaning crew, his slick charm fraying under stress. She approaches with her usual warmth, asking about the club's history to ease him into talking. It's quite a place you've got, she says, eyeing the Art Deco fixtures. Al forces a grin, but his hands fidget with a matchbook. Just a business, Mrs. Fletcher. Keeps the lights on. Jessica steers the conversation to Carmody, mentioning his regular visits. Al's eyes dart to the bar, where that ledger's still. Sitsbill liked the vibe, he says too casually. Just another customer. But when Jessica brings up the argument she overheard between Al and Martin Forrest about debts and promises, Al's face hardens. Family stuff, he snaps. Nothing for you to worry about. His defensiveness is a neon. Sin, and Jessica knows, he's hiding something big to dig deeper. Jessica chats with Tony, the bartender, who's polishing glasses with a nervous twitch. She asks about Carmody's last nights at the club, keeping her tone light. Tony glances around, then leans in. He was spooked, Mrs. Fletcher. Kept talking about fixing things before it was too late. Said he owed people. Jessica's pulse quickens. Owed who? She presses, and Tony whispers, there's a back room here. For games, cards, dice, big money. Carmody was in deep, and Al wasn't happy. Jessica thinks about the gambling rumors, wondering if Carmody's debts were to allure someone worse. Tony adds, I saw him with that guy in the dark coat too. Looked like they were arguing out by the alley. The figure in the fog again Jessicus, certain he's tied to the murder. Maybe a loan shark or a hired hand? The suspense thickens as Jessica explores the nightclub, her eyes catching details the police missed. Near the back exit, where the spilled drink was found, she spots scuff marks on the floor as if someone slipped out in a hurry. The exit leads to an alley, and Jessica steps outside, the fog swallowing the city's sounds. She notices a dumpster nearby, its lid slightly ajar, and wonders if the murder weapon, a small blade, could be hidden there. She doesn't search herself, that's for L.T. Hernandez, but she makes a mental note to tip him off. Back inside, she lingers near the bar, where the ledger catches her eye again. It's locked now, tucked under a stack of napkins, but Jessica's seen enough to know it holds answers. Could it list Carmody's debts or payments tying Ale to Martin's high-rise project? Jessica's next move is to talk to Phyllis Grant, whose cigarette and argument with Carmody keep her in the suspect pool. She finds Phyllis at a nearby jazz club, her red lipstick stark against her pale face. Jessica asks about Carmody's gambling, framing it as concern for the forests. Phyllis scoffs, lighting a cigarette. Bill was a fool with money, she says. Thought he could play the tables and win big. He owed me plenty, but I wasn't the only one. Her eyes flicker with anger, and Jessica wonders if Phyllis's grudge was enough to kill her if she's covering for someone, maybe Al or Martin. The cigarette at the crime scene nags at her, but Phyllis's brand matches Barbara's too. Jessica's not ruling anyone out. A new clue emerges when Jessica meets with L.T. Hernandez, who's growing frustrated with the case. We searched the alley, he says, found nothing but trash. No weapon, no prints. But he mentions a witness, a waitress who saw Carmody arguing with someone near the back exit just before he was stabbed. The waitress couldn't identify the figure, but they were wearing a dark jacket, like the man in the fog. Jessica's mind races, could this be the same person Tony saw with Carmody? She asks Hernandez about the cufflink, and he confirms it's with evidence, but no match yet. Jessica thinks about the Forrest family crest, wondering if Martin or Howard lost it in the chaos, or if it's a deliberate plant to throw suspicion. Jessica revisits Donna, hoping her niece's closeness to Howard will yield more. Donna's at the hotel, her eyes red from worry. Howard's dad is acting strange, she admits. He keeps talking about cleaning up after Bill's mess. Jessica probes about the high-rise project, and Donna's voice drops. Howard said, Bill was pushing for a bigger share, threatening to go public with something. Martin was furious. Jessica's antenna goes up, going public with what? Fraud? Embezzlement? She thinks about Martin's ledger and Al's, wondering if they're linked. Donna's fear suggests the Forrests are hiding a bombshell, and Jessica's determined to find it before the wedding. The city's atmosphere amps up the suspense. San Francisco's fog rolls in thicker, turning streetlights into hazy halos and making every shadow a potential threat. Jessica spots the figure in the dark coat again, lingering near the blue parrot, his presence a silent warning. She alerts Hernandez, but her instincts tell her he's tied to Al's gambling ring, a creditor, perhaps, or a killer for hire. The nightclub itself feels alive with secrets, its back room a whispered legend among the staff. Jessica thinks about the scuff marks, the spilled drink, the cufflink. Each clue is a piece of a deadly game, and she's playing it against a killer who's watching her every move. Let's pause on the suspects. Al Drake, with his nervous tics and hidden ledger, could have killed Carmody to silence a debtor or protect his gambling ring. Martin Forrest, with his empire at stake, had motive if Carmody threatened to expose fraud. Barbara's icy calm might hide a ruthless act to save the family name. Phyllis Grant's cigarette and grudge keep her in the frame, but is she a killer or a scapegoat? Howard and Donna, caught in the crossfire, might know more than they're saying. San Francisco's fog weaves a cloak of mystery around the Blue Parrot nightclub, where the brutal stabbing of Bill Carmody has turned a joyous engagement party into a chilling hunt for a killer. Jessica Fletcher, with her razor-sharp mind and unassuming charm, has followed the money trail through Martin Forrest's troubled real estate empire and Al Drake's shady gambling operations, uncovering clues like the bird-embossed cufflink, the lipstick-stained cigarette, and a spilled drink that hint at a carefully planned murder. Now, she's ready to face the Forrest family's inner circle head-on, probing their alibis and watching for the slip that betrays the guilty. In this chapter, we're stepping into the tense heart of Jessica's investigation, where every question is a calculated move, and every reaction could crack the case wide open. The suspense is a suffocating pulse. Let's follow Jessica as she navigates a web of lies, hidden motives, and dangerous secrets in a city where no one can be trusted. Jessica sits in her hotel room, the distant clang of cable cars mingling with her racing thoughts as she reviews her notes. The cufflink likely tied to the Forrest family's bird crest, the spilled drink near the Blue Parrot's back exit, and Tony's whispered tale of Carmody's proof about to go to the cops all point to a motive rooted in greed or betrayal. Martin Forrest's defensiveness, Barbara's icy composure, Al Drake's nervous energy, and Phyllis Grant's bitter grudge form a circle of suspects, each hiding something. The mysterious figure in the fog, spotted again near the club, adds a chilling layer. Could he be a hired killer or a witness with a secret? Jessica recalls a Cabot Cove case where a killer's lie unraveled under pressure, and she's ready to push the inner circle until someone cracks. Plan. Confront each suspect, observe their tells, and let human nature reveal the truth. Jessica starts with Martin Forrest, arranging a meeting at his sleek downtown office under the guise of discussing Donna's wedding. The office is a shrine to wealth, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a framed bird crest on the wall, a match for the cufflink found at the crime scene. Martin greets her with a stiff smile, his handshake firm but his eyes guarded. "About Bill," he says, his voice clipped. Jessica asks about Carmody's role in the high-rise project, mentioning its financial troubles. Martin's fingers tighten on a pen, his jaw clenching. Bill was a partner, but he had big ideas too. "Big," he says. "That project's fine now." Jessica presses, casually bringing up his argument with Al Drake about debts. Martin's face darkens. "Family business, Mrs. Fletcher. Nothing to do with Bill's death." His sharp tone is a warning, but Jessica notices a ledger on his desk, its pages marked with red ink, and wonders if it holds proof of Carmody's whistleblowing. Next, Jessica seeks out Barbara Forrest at a charity event in a glittering hotel ballroom, where the elite of San Francisco mingle. Barbara, in a tailored dress, exudes elegance, but her pearl necklace twists in her fingers as Jessica approaches. She asks about Carmody's place in the family, keeping her tone light. "He was useful," Barbara says, her voice smooth but cold, but ambitious. "It's not always loyal." Jessica mentions the cigarette found near the crime scene, noting its red lipstick. Barbara's hand pauses, her smile tightening. "Lots of women smoke, Mrs. Fletcher," she says, but Jessica spots a pack of the same brand in her purse, half hidden. She asks if Barbara saw Carmody near the back exit at the party, and Barbara's eyes narrow. "I was with guests all evening," she says, too quickly. Jessica files away her reaction, recalling a case where a spouse's perfect facade hid a deadly secret. Is Barbara protecting the Forrest name or herself? Jessica then heads to the Blue Parrot, where Al Drake is supervising a delivery, his usual charm replaced by a haggard look. The nightclub's dim lights cast shadows on his face as Jessica asks about Carmody's gambling habits. Al's hands fidget with a matchbook, his laugh forced. "Bill liked the tables, sure, but he wasn't a big player, he says. Jessica mentions Tony's story about Carmody's debts and the man in the dark coat. Al's eyes dart to the back room, where the gambling rumors swirl. You're asking too many questions, Mrs. Fletcher, he warns, his voice low. Jessica notices the ledger is now locked in a drawer, its absence screaming suspicion.
She thinks.
About the scuff marks near the back exit and the spilled drink, did Al slip out after the murder? Or is he covering for someone in his underworld network? His nervous energy suggests he's hiding a dangerous truth. Phyllis Grant is next. And Jessica finds her at a jazz club, her red lipstick bold against her sharp features. She asks about Carmody's debts, framing it as concern for Donna's wedding. Phyllis exhales a plume of smoke, her smirk brittle. Bill was a liar, she says. Owed me thousands from a deal he botched. I gave him an earful at the party, nothing more. Jessica mentions the cigarette at the crime scene watching. Phyllis's reaction, her hand trembles slightly, but she laughs it off. Red lipstick's common, Mrs. Fletcher, she says, but her eyes flicker with unease. Jessica asks about the high-rise project, and Phyllis's smirk fades. That was Martin's disaster, she says cryptically.
Ow.
Bill knew too much for her. His own good. Jessica wonders if Phyllis's anger was a motivore, a cover for someone like Martin or Al. A chilling clue emerges when Jessica talks to Tony. The bartender, outside the club, he's nervous, his eyes scanning the foggy street. I overheard Carmody on the phone a week ago, he whispers. He was talking about proof he'd take to the cops, something about fake contracts. Jessica's pulse races fake. Contracts tied to Martin's high-rise? Al's gambling? She asks about the man in the dark coat, and Tony nods. Saw him again lurking near the alley. Looked like one of Al's business friends. Jessica thinks about the figure she's seen watching the club and hotel, wondering if he's a loan shark, a hitman, or a witness with a secret. The cufflink, the cigarette, the scuff marks all point to someone close to Carmody. Someone in this inner circle who's struck with precision. Jessica checks in with L.T. Hernandez, who's growing frustrated with the case's dead ends. The cufflink's in evidence, but no owner yet, he says. The waitress who saw Carmody near the exit couldn't ID the other person, just a dark jacket. Jessica shares her theory about the gambling ring and fake contracts, and Hernandez's eyes narrow. Drake's club's been on our radar, but we need proof, he says. Jessica thinks about the Ledgers Martins and Alzan the Bird. Crest. The Forrest family's wealth and Al's shady dealings are a volatile mix, and Carmody's proof was the spark. She recalls a case where a killer's alibi cracked under scrutiny, and she's betting one of these suspects will falter. If she keeps pushing, the city's atmosphere fuels the suspense. San Francisco's fog blankets the streets, turning every shadow into a potential threat. Jessica spots the figure in the dark coat again, lingering near the hotel, his silhouette a silent menace. She alerts Hernandez, but her instincts scream that he's tied to Al's underworld, perhaps a creditor or a killer. The Blue Parrot's back room, the financial irregularities, and the family crest swirl in her mind, each clue a step closer to the truth. She thinks about Donna and Howard, their nervousness suggesting they know something about the family's secrets. The suspense is a live wire, and Jessica knows the killer's watching. It's waiting for her to get too close. Let's pause on the suspects. Martin Forrest, with his empire at risk, could have killed to bury Carmody's proof of fraud, Barbara's. Icy Calm might hide a desperate act to protect the family legacy. Al Drake's nervous tics and locked ledger point to a gambling debt or a cover-up. Phyllis Grant's grudge and cigarette keep her in the frame. But is she a killer? The fog of San Francisco wraps the city in a ghostly embrace, but the murder of Bill Carmody at the Blue Parrot nightclub cuts through the haze with a chilling clarity. Jessica Fletcher, her investigative instincts razor-sharp, has confronted the Forrest family's inner circle. Uncovering lies and tensions tied to Carmody's proof of fake contracts, the bird-embossed cufflink, and the lipstick-stained cigarette. The mysterious figure in the fog, spotted lurking near the club and hotel, has become a haunting presence, a shadow that could hold the key to the killer's identity. In this chapter, we're diving into Jessica's pursuit of this elusive figure, chasing a trail through the city's misty streets and the Blue Parrot's dark secrets. The suspense is a relentless drumbeat. Let's follow Jessica as she hunts a shadow that could unravel the deadly truth or lead her straight into danger. Jessica stands outside her hotel, the fog curling around her like a living thing, her mind racing with the clues she's gathered. It's the cufflink with the Forrest family's bird crest, the spilled drink near the Blue Parrot's back exit, and Tony's whisper about Carmody's plan to go to the cops with proof of fake contracts point to a motive rooted in financial deceit. Martin Forrest's defensiveness, Barbara's icy calm, Al Drake's nervous energy, and Phyllis Grant's bitter grudge all keep the inner circle under suspicion. But the figure in the dark coat seen by Tony, the waitress, and Jessica herself feels like the missing piece. Jessica recalls a Cabot Cove case where a shadowy witness turned out to be the key, and she's determined to track this figure before they vanish into the city's haze. Her plan: follow the trail to the Blue Parrot's alley and beyond, where the shadow's secrets might reveal the killer. Jessica heads to the Blue Parrot. The neon sign flickering in the fog, its allure now a mask for danger. The club is quiet, the daytime lull a stark contrast to the night of Carmody's murder. She slips around to the alley by the back exit where the spilled drink and scuff marks hinted at a hasty escape. The alley is narrow, lined with overflowing dumpsters and a rusted fire escape, the fog swallowing distant streetlights. Jessica examines the ground, spotting a faint smear of dirt near the scuff marks. Could it be from the killer's shoes? She notices a torn piece of paper caught in the dumpster's lid, its edge marked with a phone number and smudged ink. She doesn't touch it. She knows better, but she memorizes the number, wondering if it's tied to the figure in the fog or Al's underworld contacts. The alley feels like a trap, and Jessica's senses are on high alert. Back inside the club, Jessica seeks out Tony, the bartender, who's wiping down tables with a nervous glance at the door. She asks about the man in the dark coat, keeping her voice low. Tony's eyes widen, his hands shaking. I saw him again last night, hanging around the alley, he whispers. Looked like he was waiting for someone. Al knows him, I'm sure. Of it, Jessica presses, asking if Carmody ever mentioned him. Tony hesitates, then says Bill was scared if someone called him the Fixer. Said he was in deep with Al's crowd. Jessica's pulse quickens. The Fixer? A loan shark, a hitman, or a go-between for Martin's shady deals? She thinks about the phone number, wondering if it's a lead to this shadowy figure. Tony's fear is palpable, and Jessica knows he's holding back, afraid of crossing Al's dangerous allies. Jessica's next move is to call L.T. Hernandez, sharing the phone number from the alley. Hernandez, sounding weary, agrees to trace it, but warns her to stay safe. That alley's no place for a writer, Mrs. Fletcher, he says. Drake's club has ties to some rough people. Jessica nods, but her mind is on the figure in the fog. She recalls seeing him near the hotel, his silhouette a constant shadow in her investigation. She decides to stake out the Blue Parrot that evening, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. She sits at a cafe across the street, her eyes fixed on the club's entrance, the fog turning passers-by into ghosts. As night falls, the neon sign flares to life, and Jessica spots him, the man in the dark coat, lingering near the alley, his face obscured by a hat. Her heart races as he slips into the shadows, and she follows at a distance, her writer's curiosity outweighing her caution. The chase leads her through San Francisco's winding streets, the fog muffling her footsteps. As she tracks the figure, he moves quickly, ducking into a narrow side street lined with shuttered storefronts. Jessica keeps her distance, her heart pounding as she recalls a case where following a lead nearly cost her life. The figure stops at a payphone, glancing around. Before making a call, Jessica strains to hear, catching only fragments. It's done, and no more payments. Her mind races. Was he talking about Carmody's murder? She memorizes the payphone's location, planning to share it with Hernandez. As the figure moves on, disappearing into the fog, Jessica feels the weight of danger, but knows she's closer to the truth. The phone number from the alley and this call could be the thread that ties the figure to the killer. Back at the hotel, Jessica checks in with Donna, hoping her niece's connection to Howard might yield more. Donna's anxious, her engagement ring twisting on her finger. Howard's been so distant, she says. Keeps saying his dad's handling things, but he won't tell me what. Jessica asks about the high-rise project and Carmody's proof. Donna's eyes widen. Howard mentioned something about fake contracts once, but he shut down when I asked. Said Bill was trouble. Jessica's antenna goes up. Fake contracts again, tying to Tony's story. She wonders if Howard knows more about his father's dealings, or if Donna's fear is hiding a secret of her own. The Forrest family crest, the cufflink, and the financial web keep pointing to Martin. But the figure in the fog suggests an outside player. Jessica meets Phyllis Grant at a cafe, probing her about the man in the dark coat. Phyllis, lighting a cigarette, smirks. Al's got all sorts of shady friends, she says. Bill hung around them too, thinking he was a big shot. Jessica mentions the cigarette at the crime scene, watching Phyllis's reaction. Her hand trembles, but she laughs it off. Red. Lipstick's everywhere, Mrs. Fletcher, she says, but her eyes flicker with unease. Jessica asks about the high-rise project, and Phyllis's smirk fades. Bill was stirring up trouble, talking about audits. Martin didn't like that. Jessica wonders if Phyllis knows more about the proof or if she's deflecting suspicion. The cigarette clue nags at her, shared by Phyllis and Barbara, keeping both women in the frame. The suspense spikes when Jessica shares the payphone lead with L.T. Hernandez, who traces the number from the alley to a burner phone, untrackable but linked to a known loan shark in Al's circle. This guy's bad news, Hernandez says. Is he tied to gambling debts, maybe worse. Jessica thinks about the fixer Tony mentioned, wondering if the figure in the fog was hired to silence Carmody. She revisits the crime scene in her mind, the cufflink, the spilled drink, the scuff marks. The bird emblem points to the forests, but the figure suggests Al's underworld. She recalls a case where a hired killer was the pawn of a powerful mastermind, and wonders if Martin or Al pulled the strings. San Francisco's fog adds a chilling edge, turning every street into a maze of shadows. Jessica spots the figure again. San Francisco's fog blankets the city in a veil of secrets, but the murder of Bill Carmody at the Blue Parrot nightclub burns through the haze, its truth tantalizingly close. Jessica Fletcher, with her unerring knack for uncovering hidden motives, has chased the mysterious figure in the fog, shadow tied to Al Drake's underworld, and the chilling proof Carmody planned to take to the cops. The bird-embossed cufflink, the lipstick-stained cigarette, and the spilled drink near the club's back exit point to a killer within the Forrest family's inner circle. Otherwise, in the fake contracts, Carmody threatened to expose. In this chapter, we're diving into the financial deceit that fueled this deadly game. As Jessica unearths documents that could shatter Martin Forrest's empire and reveal the killer's identity, the suspense is a relentless surge. Let's follow Jessica as she navigates a maze of lies and danger. Racing to uncover the truth before the killer strikes again, Jessica sits at a small desk in her hotel room. The city's foggy glow filtering through the curtains as she pores over her notes. The cufflink with the Forrest family's bird crest, the phone number from the alley, and Tony's whisper about Carmody's proof of fake contracts keeps circling in her mind. The figure in the fog, possibly the fixer tied to Al's gambling ring, suggests an outside player, but the motive feels personal. Rooted in Martin Forrest's troubled high-rise project, library records hinted at financial irregularities, and Phyllis Grant's cryptic comment about Carmody knowing too much points to fraud. Jessica recalls a Cabot Cove case where forged documents led to murder, and she's determined to find these contracts before the killer buries them or her. Her plan: dig into Martin's business records, press Al for answers, and follow the paper trail to the heart of the crime. Jessica starts at the San Francisco Library, using her writer's credentials to access deeper financial archives. Focuses on Martin's high-rise project, a luxury tower stalled by lawsuits and missing funds. Buried in a stack of reports, she finds a bombshell, a set of contracts for subcontractor payments, signed by Carmody and Martin, but the amounts don't add up. Cross-referencing with bank records. Jessica spots inflated invoices, millions funneled to shell companies. One linked to Al Drake's Blue Parrot, Her pulse races fake contracts, siphoning money from the project. Was Carmody complicit then? Turned whistleblower. Or did he threaten to expose Martin's fraud? Jessica photocopies the documents, knowing they're dynamite in the wrong hands, and wonders if Carmody's proof was a copy of these same contracts. Next, Jessica heads to the Blue Parrot, where the daytime quiet feels like a held breath. Al Drake is there, hunched over a new ledger, his face etched with worry. Jessica, feigning concern about the wedding, asks about his ties to Martin's project. Al's hands tremble, dropping a pen. "That's Martin's world, not mine," he says, his voice tight. Jessica presses, mentioning the shell company linked to the club. Al's eyes dart to the locked drawer where the old ledger was kept. "You're way off, Mrs. Fletcher," he snaps, but his sweat betrays him. Jessica thinks about the gambling ring Tony mentioned, wondering if Al used the siphoned funds to cover debts or if he was Martin's silent partner in the fraud. The figure in the fog, possibly Al's fixer, looms in her mind, a shadow, tied to the money trail. Jessica's next stop is Martin Forrest's office, where she confronts him with bolder questions. She mentions the high-rise's financial troubles, hinting at discrepancies she's found. Martin's face is a mask of control, but his knuckles whiten on his desk. "Those are baseless rumors," he says, his voice sharp. "Phil was loyal. But he got greedy." Jessica asks about the shell companies, watching his reaction. Martin's eyes flash with anger. "You're meddling in things you don't understand, Mrs. Fletcher," he warns, standing abruptly. Jessica notices the bird. Crest on his cufflinks identical to the one at the crime scene. Was it Martin's? Lost in the struggle? She thinks about the ledger she saw, marked with red ink, and wonders if it lists the fake contracts. Martin's fury feels like a shield, hiding guilt or fear. Barbara Forrest is next, and Jessica finds her at a gallery opening, her elegance unshaken but her eyes wary. Jessica asks about Carmody's role in the project, mentioning the financial irregularities. Barbara's fingers twist her pearl necklace, her smile thin. "Bill was ambitious," she says, "but he didn't know his limits." Jessica brings up the cigarette at the crime scene, noting its red lipstick. Barbara's hand pauses, her voice cool. "A coincidence, I'm sure," she says, but Jessica spots the same cigarette brand in her purse. She asks if Barbara knew about the fake contracts, and Barbara's eyes narrow. "Business was Martin's domain," she says, too quickly. Jessica recalls a case where a spouse's loyalty hid complicity, and wonders if Barbara was protecting the family or orchestrating the cover dash-up. Jessica revisits Phyllis Grant at a boutique, probing her about Carmody's proof. Phyllis, lighting a cigarette, scoffs. "Bill was always talking big," she says, exhaling smoke. "Said he had dirt on Martin, but I didn't buy it." Jessica mentions the shell companies, watching Phyllis's reaction. Her smirk fades, her eyes flickering. "That's Martin's mess," she says. "Well, got too nosy." Jessica wonders if Phyllis's grudge was a motive, or if she's deflecting to protect someone, perhaps Al, whose gambling debts might tie to the siphoned funds. The cigarette clue shared by Phyllis and Barbara keeps nagging, a thread that could unravel the killer's identity. A new clue emerges when Jessica talks to Tony, the bartender outside the Blue Parrot. He's terrified, his eyes darting to the fog. "I found something in the back room," he whispers, slipping her a crumpled receipt. It's for a wire transfer to a shell company, signed by Carmody, dated days before his death. Heart pounds. This could be the proof he planned to take to the cops. Tony adds, "The guy in the dark coat was here again, asking about you." Jessica's blood runs cold. The figure knows she's digging. She thinks about the phone number from the alley, traced to a loan shark in Al's circle, and wonders if the fixer was hired to silence Carmody and now, Jessica shares the receipt with L.T. Hernandez, who's stunned by her find. "This ties to the shell companies," he says. "We're pulling records, but it's a maze." He warns her about the loan shark linked to Al's gambling ring. "Stay away from that club, Mrs. Fletcher," he says, but Jessica's already planning her next move. She thinks about the crime scene, the cufflink, the spilled drink, the scuff marks. The bird crest points to Martin or Howard, but the figure in the fog suggests Al's underworld. She recalls a case where a financial scam led to a staged murder, and wonders if Carmody's death was meant to bury the contract sore. Warn others to stay silent. San Francisco's fog fuels the suspense, turning streets into a labyrinth of shadows. Jessica spots the figure in the dark coat again, lingering near the hotel, his presence a silent threat. Her heart races, but she's too close to stop. The Forest's empire, Al's gambling ring, and Carmody's proof are a volatile mix, and the killer is watching, ready to strike if Jessica gets too close. The suspense is a live wire, and she's walking it with every step. Let's pause on the suspects. Martin Forrest, with his empire crumbling, could have killed to bury the fake contracts. Barbara's calm might hide complicity in the fraud. Drake's ties to the shell company and the fixer point to a desperate cover-up. Phyllis Grant's cigarette and knowledge keep her in play, but is she a killer? Howard and Donna might know the truth, torn by loyalty. The figure in the fog is a wild card. San Francisco's fog swirls like a curtain closing on a deadly drama. But the murder of Bill Carmody at the Blue Parrot nightclub demands its final act, and Jessica Fletcher is ready to pull back the veil. Armed with the chilling truth of fake contracts, a bird-embossed cufflink, a lipstick-stained cigarette, and the shadowy figure in the fog, Jessica has unraveled a web of financial deceit and family secrets tying Carmody to Martin Forrest's empire and Al Drake's gambling ring. The proof Carmody planned to take to the cops, evidence of fraud in the high-rise. Project has pushed the suspects to their breaking point, and now Jessica is ready to confront the killer. In this final chapter, we're diving into the heart-pounding climax where every clue converges and the truth behind Carmody's death is revealed. The suspense is a suffocating roar. Let's follow Jessica as she faces the killer, unmasking a motive that's as heartbreaking as it is deadly in a city where shadows hold the final answers. Jessica sits in her hotel room. The city's foggy, glow casting eerie patterns on the walls as she pieces together the final clues. The cufflink with the Forrest family's bird crest, the cigarette with red lipstick, the spilled drink near the Blue Parrot's back exit, and the crumpled receipt. For a shell company, all point to a motive rooted in Martin Forrest's fraudulent high-rise project. Carmody's proof of fake contracts, as Tony revealed, threatened to expose a scheme that funneled millions to Al Drake's nightclub. And the figure in the fog-alone shark, known as the Fixer, was likely hired to silence him. Martin's defensiveness, Barbara's icy calm, Al's nervous energy, and Phyllis Grant's grudge have all been tested. But Jessica's mind keeps circling back to Howard Forrest, whose unease and loyalty to his family hide a deeper truth. She recalls a Cabot Cove case, where a killer's motive was personal, not financial, and suspects Howard's role in the family drama holds the key. Her plan: gather the inner circle at the Blue Parrot, push them to the edge, and watch the killer. Jessica arranges a meeting at the Blue Parrot, claiming it's to discuss Donna's wedding plans, but her real goal is a confrontation. The club is dim, its neon sign flickering as Martin, Barbara, Howard, Donna, Al Drake, and Phyllis Grant gather, their faces tense with suspicion. L.T. Hernandez is there, too, at Jessica's request, his eyes sharp as she begins. "I've found something about Bill Carmody's death," she says, her voice calm but firm, holding up the photocopied contracts. These fake contracts tied Bill to a scheme that stole millions from the high-rise project. Martin's face pales, his hands clenching, while Al shifts uncomfortably, his eyes darting to the locked drawer. Jessica continues, mentioning the cufflink with the bird crest. "It belongs to your family, Martin," she says, watching Howard flinch. "But it wasn't yours, was it?" The room is electric with tension, and Jessica's ready to spring. The trap, she turns to Al, asking about the shell company linked to his club. "Bill owed money, didn't he?" she says. "But he was ready to go to the cops with proof of your involvement." Al's sweat beads, his voice shaking. "I didn't kill him," he snaps. But Jessica notices his hand gripping the matchbook, a tell of guilt. She shifts to Phyllis, holding up the cigarette brand. "This was found near Bill's body," she says. "You argued with him, but you weren't the only one smoking that night. Were you, Barbara?" Barbara's composure cracks, her fingers twisting her necklace as she snaps. I was nowhere near him. Jessica's eyes lock on Howard, who's trembling, his face a mask of fear. Howard, she says softly, you knew about the contracts, didn't you? And what they meant for your family. The truth unravels as Jessica lays out the scene. Carmody, a key player in Martin's project, discovered the fake contracts funneling money to Al's gambling ring. He planned to expose the fraud, threatening Martin's empire and Al's livelihood. But it was Howard, torn between loyalty to his father and fear of ruin, who acted. Jessica reveals the cufflink was Howard's, lost in the struggle when he stabbed Carmody in the Blue Parrot's dim corner. Using a small blade from his father's office, a letter opener with the bird crest, the spilled drink was a distraction, masking his escape through the back exit. The figure in the fog, a loan shark hired by Al to intimidate Carmody, was a witness, not the killer, and his presence pushed Howard to act before Carmody could go public. Jessica's voice is steady as she says, "You wanted to protect your family, Howard, but you went too far." Howard's face crumples, his voice breaking. "I didn't mean to," he sobs. "Dad was going to lose everything. Bill was going to ruin us." Donna gasps, tears streaming, as Martin's face hardens, his silence confirming his complicity in the fraud. Barbara's eyes blaze with fury, but she says nothing, her loyalty to Howard unshaken. Al, pale, admits to hiring the fixer to scare Carmody, but denies the murder. Phyllis, stunned, mutters about Carmody's debts, her cigarette no longer a clue but a coincidence. Hernandez steps forward, cuffs ready, as Howard collapses, the weight of his guilt crushing him. Jessica's heart aches. She's seen families torn apart by loyalty before, and Howard's desperation mirrors a case where love led to tragedy. The Blue Parrot, once a stage 4 glamour, is now a scene of reckoning. Hernandez confirms the letter opener was found in the alley's dumpster. Missed in the initial search, its bird crest tying it to Howard. The fake contracts, now in police hands, will unravel Martin's empire and Al's gambling ring faces scrutiny. Jessica thinks about the cigarette, a red herring that pointed to Phyllis and Barbara, and the figure in the fog, a distraction that masked Howard's personal motive. She recalls a case where a young man's loyalty to family led to murder. And Howard's story is no different, a son desperate to save his father's legacy, only to destroy his own. San Francisco's fog lifts slightly as if the city itself exhales with the truth revealed. Jessica stands outside the club, the neon sign dim, her thoughts heavy. Donna, heartbroken but safe, clings to her, vowing to move forward. The Forrest family's empire will crumble, but Jessica knows justice has been served. Suspense that gripped the city fades, but the scars remain, a reminder of how far loyalty can push someone. She thinks about Cabot Cove, where small-town secrets can be just as deadly, feels a pang for home. Let's pause on the resolution. Howard, driven by fear and loyalty, killed Carmody to protect his father's fraud. Martin's greed set the stage, Al's gambling ring fueled the stakes, and Barbara's silence enabled it all. Phyllis and the fixer were pieces of the puzzle, but Howard was the hand that struck. Jessica's brilliance, as always, lay in the details: the cufflink, the contracts, the human heart. Here's a final tip to keep you engaged. Think about loyalty. Howard's love for his family drove him to kill, but it was his undoing. Try reflecting on a clue that surprised you, the cufflink, or the contracts, and share how it hit you. What did you think of the reveal? Drop your reactions in the comments and let's talk about this heartbreaking twist. If you loved unraveling this with Jessica, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for more mysteries. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next case.